All right, we are live with week 2 of Trinity Force's Journey to 30.
Yay!
I'm here joined with, of course, Snagglewolf.
That's me.
That's him. And we're ready to bring you some advice today on champions. Before we get into that, we're gonna go over kind of what we talked about last week, and that was a basic rundown of like acronyms, things that you kind of need to know about terminology, and the map. So
Yes.
how about we start with the map real quick. We're just going to go over what a lane is and why we lane, and then we're going to move real quick into terminology, just kind of covering bases just really quickly. How about you go ahead and start with the map?
Well, we basically started with the layout of the map, going over the various lanes, the top, mid, and the bottom. We showed where the jungle was, and basically pointed out the points of interest on the map, the most important areas you're going to want to pay attention to, where the buffs are, things such as that.
Yeah, and we talked about the lanes. We talked about like the differences in not really the differences in the lanes, but kind of why we lane to get experience and to get gold. So and you're always welcome to go back and check out episode 1 of the Journey to 30. And so real quick, acronyms. All those different types of, there's a lot of different acronyms that you guys need to like pay attention to and just kind of keep in your mind, but a few of the key ones is AD is attack damage, AP is ability power, there's true damage, there's farm and CS, creep score, there's ganking, which is where you get attacked by the enemy in whatever way. Maybe it's someone roaming or the jungler's coming down to try and hit you. There's feeding, where you end up actually just dying multiple times to one particular person and just giving him kills and gold and experience. There's CDR, which
Feeding
is
bad.
Yeah, feeding's bad. Don't feed. CDR, cooldown reduction. MS is movement speed. ATS is attack speed. So those are just a few things to remember when we're going into what we're about to talk about now, which is champions. So we want to kind of like explain what we talked about before, because a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about before are things we're going to lead into and segue with the next episode. So we're just giving you a good fresh reminder of those things, just so you can, oh, I remember AD attack damage, AP ability power, magic, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and start with who we think you guys should play.
That's probably your first big decision, and it's kind of a big one. There's what, how many champs now? 117, or am I completely off?
I'll go check real quick right now.
There's a lot.
There are a lot.
And yeah, that's, and each champion has their own set of abilities, their own quirks, and it's going to take you a while to get to know how to play each champion. So when you're choosing, I mean, the game's ultimately to have a good time. Like, if you see someone that looks cool and you want to give them a shot, like, go for it. But the other side of that is also, while you're learning, you want to try and choose champions that aren't too complicated, because there's definitely harder champions to play than others.
Mm-hmm. So right now there are 119 champions.
That was close.
Yeah, so there's a lot of champions to pick from. And, when I first started out, I just kind of looked at who I thought was cool, who had a cool name or something like that, and just kind of tried them out all together. But honestly, you're going to be working with a small pool of champions. It's called the champion rotation, and it changes every single week. I'm pretty sure it happens on Monday and Tuesday, like Monday to Tuesday. And those 10 champions, they'll rotate. Some you'll get more common, like several supports you'll see quite frequently, and then others will be really rare. The really rare ones usually being the ones that aren't really played all that often. I'm not saying that they're like bad or anything, they're just not as popular as other champions. So real quick rundown of this week's champion rotation. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the champion pool. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. And so right now, our champion pool, let me edit this to make it a little bit more even. We currently have Janna. She is a support. We have Jinx. She is an AD carry. We have Mordekaiser. He is an AP carry, or a top laner. We have Quinn. She is considered a marksman and AD carry, but she's also considered a fighter. It's weird. We have Rammus, who's a tank. We have Rumble. Right there, Rumble for you. He's a mage. Soraka, She fits in the support role, but can she also be played as a mage? And then we have Udyr, who's a brawler and a fighter, but he can also be played as a tank. And I believe, if I'm looking over all of them, that looks to be all of them, yes. So we're going to go ahead and talk about this week's champion rotation, just to quickly go over who we think you should play in this week, starting with the tank role, because roles are very specific. You'll end up getting more into in-depth roles as you get further on in the game, but the tank role is a very broad role, like a very general role, and it's just people that live and can deal with getting punished severely and take a lot of damage. And the one that sticks out as one of the ones in the champion rotation is actually one that we recommended for our new players, and that's Rammus. You want to go ahead and talk about Rammus?
I like Rammus a lot. He was actually one of the champions I started with early on. He's real tanky, and he's fast too. He's got a pretty decent escape with his Q. And he does a decent amount of damage, and his kit is pretty simple to figure out. And that's one of the things, like we were saying, you kind of want to stick with when you're learning, is find a champion with a kit that's not too complicated. And I like Rammus. He's a great champ.
Yeah, he's really fun. We're not going to talk too heavily in depth with these guys. We're just going to throw them out as recommendations. But yeah, Rammus is one of the ones we recommend. For those of you that really like tanky champions, he's also really cool. And actually, real quick side note, I went to Fanime this year. For those of you who don't know, that's in San Jose. It's this huge, giant convention where people dress up, and there's palettes of everything for people to do. But there's actually a Rammus hat there. And I actually got a Rammus hat, and I love it. It's amazing.
I want one of those hats.
It's so good. You'll see him at the LCS, the championships for those all the time. But anyway, we're going to move on into mages. Now, there's not a whole lot of mages that we have right now. Oh, I also missed Shen. There's Shen.
Shen.
Yeah, he's not a very... He can be a little difficult if you don't know what you're doing, but he's also a good tank champion to play.
Mm-hmm.
But real quick, we're going to talk about mages. There's not a whole lot to look from, because Mordekaiser is actually really difficult to play, and as is Rumble. But there is Soraka, and I played her as a mage a lot this season. She's actually a really fun person to play as a mage. So you want to talk about Soraka? She also fits the support role, and there's a reason for that too.
Yeah, she's actually gotten a lot of attention the past little while, even in the LCS. She's another great champion because she's got heals, she's got a silence, she's got a pretty strong AoE attack. Her kit's not too difficult to figure out, and having that heal is it's good for when you're learning, because it gives you some sustain, because you're going to make mistakes, and being able to heal up some of that damage you may take is super useful.
Definitely. And that if you play her as a mage, her infuse ability, which is her E, it silences somebody. It's pretty good, and it deals.
Yeah, that starts to hit real hard once you get some AP.
It starts to deal a lot of damage when you start to get some damage up there. And then there's also her Q, which is the Star Call. That's a really fun ability, just because it looks really good. The animation is really solid, and probably the best part about her kit is got to be her ultimate. Everybody loves it because that global ultimate is amazing. It's called Wish, and it heals all of your allies. It's amazing.
Yeah, and as far as easy abilities to use, you can't get much easier than hitting your R button and watching everyone's life go up.
Yeah, definitely. So back into the champion rotation, we're going to talk about an easy marksman for you guys to play. Oh, I also missed Talon. How did I just miss these people? I just straight up missed them. Unfortunately, none of the 10 in this week's champion rotation we recommended for new players, but we're just going to go ahead and quick talk about one in particular that is usually very common in the champ rotation, and I'm assuming you already know who I'm going to talk about. Caitlyn.
Yeah, Caitlyn.
She's a really easy champion. She's really popular, and she's just really fun.
Yeah, if you are interested in the marksman role, she is your best bet. She's got huge range. She's got some pretty simple abilities. Yeah, Caitlyn's great. She's got an escape. I like Caitlyn a lot.
Yeah, she's just a really simple, straightforward champion to play. Most AD carries, they rely on their auto attacks with some synergizing abilities to kind of help with her, like with their kit to give them a little bit bonus damage, and it's usually something like a skill shot that just deals damage, or maybe like an escape, like her 90 caliber brunette, her E. Sometimes a lot with Caitlyn, there's a stun that you have, just a little snare that like stops them in their tracks. But probably her best ability, for those of you that play Dota, you would know it as the sniper. Her ultimate, Ace in the Hole, really good ultimate for an AD carry. You just pick somebody, you shoot a heavy damage dealing bullet, and you can use it as an execution or even as an initiation, just because it's kind of a short cooldown. So, Caitlyn,
yeah,
really
that's your no, you're not getting away from your ability.
And the range on it is huge because she's a sniper.
It's ridiculous.
So Caitlyn's our recommended marksman AD carry if you're looking to play that role. We're going to go ahead and skip over support, but we'll come back to these. We just want to give you a brief one real quick. And we're going to look, for those of you that are playing jungle and are really enjoying the jungle, and you're like a higher level and you're starting to really learn, okay, this is the meta, this is what's going on. Not directed towards you newer players that are really beginning to learn. This is more kind of for the players that are a little bit more familiar with what's going on in the game. We talked about Rammus as a good jungler already, but one that's really good and strong right now is actually a Mumu. He's actually pretty good as a jungler, and he's just also really fun. Yeah,
Mumu's a great champion. You've got his bandage toss gets you right up on top of someone real quick, and he's got an AOE effect, and he's pretty simple to figure out. His ultimate is real great for team fights. You can get in there if you build him a little tanky and just lock everybody down and let your team clean him up. He's a really good champion.
And he's just really fun. Like, I really enjoy playing Mumu. It's fun. It's funny. I'll say, like, I think a champion's really fun just in general. It might just be because I love this game, but it's also just because, like, they just stand out as interesting, fun champions.
Yeah.
To really play. So this week's champion rotation wasn't very new player friendly, I gotta say. Hopefully a lot of you guys will be watching this, maybe, well, I don't know. Not hopefully, but some of you guys will be watching this maybe down a week down the road, and you'll see new champions in the champion rotation. But I would highly recommend just kind of toying with whoever you decide you want to play. But now we're just going to go back to like the tank role, and we're just going to talk about a few champions that we think that you should play. And we're just going to go down the list as the 5 main roles of who we think that you would find the most success with in the early game and learning the game, starting with tanks.
Yep. And we're going to start with my boy Garen. He's the first champion that I started to use in this game, and I got okay with him. But he is, I still like Garen a lot. He's a tank, so he's tanky, but he also can dish out a lot of damage, and he's got a movement speed steroid that also is a silence. His ultimate you can use to take guys out. Like, he's just a lot of fun to play. I like Garen.
I really think it's funny. A lot of you might not know the lore behind Garen, but he has a beef with Katarina, and in all of his abilities, he's interacting with Katarina. I just think it's really interesting.
Yep.
So I find that interesting. But yeah, Garen's he's a really easy champion to play and really tanky, and he definitely, his passive, which allows him to regenerate health more quickly, is really new player friendly. So that's really nice too.
It's super useful because you can just back off if you're taking too much damage and hang out by your turret and just wait for your health to regen.
So, due to the fact that we're already 15 minutes in, we're just gonna do 3 per role, and I think we should just talk about. I think Malphite's a really solid champion to play early game. He's really easy to learn.
Agreed. Yeah, I like Malphite.
So Malphite's awesome because, again, very new player friendly. His passive is this thing called Granite Shield, and it just gives you a nice bulky shield that just, allows for some leeway if you get yourself into a little bit of a pickle. But he has a slow with his Q, Seismic Shard, slows him down and does some damage. His W is just this AoE damage ability that gives him a little bit more bonus attack damage, and it increases his armor a lot, which is really nice too, because that synergizes really well with his E, which is this ground slam. He punches the ground and deals a decent amount of AoE damage around, so that's really nice. But definitely the most notable part of Malphite is his ultimate Unstoppable Force. You dive at a location and you hit everyone so hard that it knocks them up in the air. So that's really fun.
That's another really good ability for team fights. You You get in there and knock up everyone else, and that gives the rest of your team time to start chunking them.
Yeah. So Malphite.
The only thing I would say about Malphite, and I've even done this, is just to make sure with his ult you are like getting that lined up, because it doesn't. It's a ground target. It's not a champion target. So if you misclick, they can get out of the way, or you can even just miss it entirely. So,
yeah.
But it's even with that said, it's still a pretty easy ult to pull off.
Yeah, it's really straight, and it's big, so it's very forgiving as well. All right, so moving on into mages, I want to talk about Annie because she's my girl. I love Annie. Annie's definitely one of my favorite champions.
She's great.
She's awesome. She's really easy, super straightforward. She has a couple skill shots, which makes it a little bit more difficult. But they're instant skill shots, so they're not that difficult. It's really hard to miss with them. She also has one of my favorite skins, Panda Annie. Just the recall animation is awesome. But anyway, going into her abilities, first off, her passive, when you use 4 of her abilities, you charge up a stun, and your next ability, depending on what you choose, can stun. It can either stun multiple people, if you were to use like your W, which is an AoE attack, or if you were to use, most people use your R, which is your ultimate, where you drop a bear, that also stuns people. So if that's your... Tibbers! Everybody loves Tibbers. Anyway... So her Q, her Disintegrate, is just an AoE, or it's just an instant nuke. That not instant, but it's a traveling nuke that deals a decent amount of damage. Her W is Incinerate, deals AoE damage in a cone in front of her. Her E is Molten Shield. It allows for you to get some resistances in case she gets into a little bit of a pickle. It's also really low on a mana cost, so if you're looking to try and just stack your stun up, your passive stun, it's really easy to just pop your E and get a free stack up. And then there's her ultimate, Tibbers, which is the best part of Annie.
And I don't know what it is about Annie, but it seems like they forget how much damage she does. I don't know whether it's because she's a little girl running around, but she can nuke people and they won't have any idea it's coming. Like, she does so much damage with her abilities if you've got her built with enough AP.
Mm-hmm. She's really fun too. You want to talk about Lux?
Yeah, Lux is pretty great. She's Garen's sister, actually, if we're going to get some lore in there.
That's kind of why we tossed her in there, too.
Yeah, and she's got some pretty... she's got a pretty easy kit to get your mind around. She's got a stun, which can be really useful for locking down enemies or just escaping if you get someone chasing you, light binding. Her prismatic barrier is a shield she throws at her staff. And the cool thing about that is... like, it boomerangs back to her, and anyone it hits on your team, it gives them a shield, so that's good for team fights. And then Lucent Singularity is a slow, and also it does damage when you ignite it. And her final spark, her ult, is another one of those iconic League ults. She basically fires a giant laser for a huge amount of distance, and you can just do a massive amount of damage to a lot of people who think they're out of range.
Mm-hmm. So we tossed in Lux because she's fun, and while she's a little more skill shot heavy of a champion, we both feel like that she's really easy to learn and grasp and get a hold of, and she's really good at introducing skill shots to newer players. So while she's not exactly your go-to mage when you're talking about like an easy mage to learn, I disagree, because I think Lux is a great mage to learn, because she just sets you up with learning other mages and learning how to make skill shots happen and learning how to use them effectively. So we tossed her in there simply because she's just a really strong champion. All right, so we're going to do one more mage. Who do you want to do?
I really like Galio. Actually, let's talk about Karthus if we're talking about easy.
Yeah, he is really easy
ults.
Let me bring up Karthus. There he is.
And he just got a rework recently, so he looks way better than he used to.
Yeah. So apparently, for whatever reason, he's considered very difficult, but we both completely disagree, because he's very forgiving in 2 of his abilities. His first ability that he's forgiving in is called Wall of Pain, which just blocks people off and slows them, which is just really easy. Like, if you're getting chased and you just drop it, you can easily get away using Wall of Pain. It also lowers magic resist, but that's it's not like when you have at such a low rank, it's almost negligible. And then the other ability that's really good for low ranking players and people learning how to play the game is his ultimate called Requiem. And it's basically something that you use when you die, or you think you're going to finish someone off and you feel like you're safe. You channel your ultimate and it hits everybody on the map. So if you remember, I can't remember his name in Dota, but there was a similar guy in Dota that did the same thing. And it's very straightforward. You know it's going to hit everybody. If you think it's going to kill someone, you can kill him. The one problem is it's kind of a long cooldown.
Yeah, press R to win.
That's Karthus. And then Lay Waste is actually pretty forgiving too. It's a very low mana cost item. If you spam it too much, you're gonna lose your mana. But that being said, it's still very easy to just do exactly that. Spam it and not really be hurt by it because it's just not that expensive. So that's really
like
good.
Most Karthus players use it to farm. Like that's how quickly you can use it. It's got a brief cast time. It's not an instant hit, but once you've cast it a few times and you get that timing down, it's a pretty easy ability to spam.
Yeah, we were thinking about talking about Rise, but we opted not to simply because the changes a couple of patches ago nerfed his range. So we just decided that learning a new champion, and while you say he can roll his face on the keyboard and win, there is actually a solid combo that Rise does to be the most effective, rather than just rolling your face on the keyboard. And then lastly is Defile on Karthus. Just does AoE damage, which is really nice, which is really good too. And also gives you mana back whenever you kill an enemy. But that is Karthus for you. And he's a really good starting champion to play too. He also looks BA as heck. So I like
his
Karthus.
rework is so good.
Yeah, it looks really good. Alright, so moving on, we're going to go back to AD carry and talk about a couple more AD carries that we feel are really good early player, like very nice, just very kind to early players. Starting with Ashe. Everybody knows Ashe. If you've ever done the tutorial, you play Ashe, and Ashe is really straightforward too.
Yeah, she's pretty easy to pick up. She's got a decent range. Doesn't have as big a range as Caitlyn, but it's not too bad. And she's got that volley ability, which basically shoots out a spread of arrows. That's pretty straightforward. You just hit everybody in front of you. And she's got a good vision ability. And her Frost Shot applies a slow to all of her auto attacks. So she's good for kiting, she's good for slowing enemies. And her R, her Enchanted Crystal Arrow, that is another great ability that's pretty easy to figure out. She basically launches a giant crystal arrow that flies across the entire map. So you can, and it stuns whoever it hits, and the stun increases the farther you fire it. Or is it the damage? The stun or the damage?
It's the stun that increases.
Stun. So you can use it up close. You can use it to try and hit someone on the other side of the map. It's great for chasing down enemies or getting away. If you've got, an assassin on your tail and you know you're done, you can even fire it as a last-ditch effort to get some distance on them.
Yeah, Ashe is a really good new. She's very friendly to new champions or new summoners as well, and she's pretty fun too. Like I really enjoy Ashe. I've said it before, but I really like the voices of champions, and Ashe is one of the champions that has like a nice voice with her. So
yeah, she's got a good design.
Yeah, that's nice too. And I think just due to the recent changes, do we want to talk about Ezreal? Another one of those champions that kind of relies on skill shots, but once you get the hang of him, he's actually really fun to play.
Yeah, he is. He's actually he's a champion that I hadn't touched at all until recently, and he is a lot of fun to play. Like you say, he's a skill shot based champion, but he's got an escape with his arcane shift, which also fires a homing shot.
Which is why we put him. Which is another reason why we put him on the list for beginner champions. Is that's very, very, very nice to have as a new champion or a new player.
Yeah, for sure.
But continue.
Yeah, and so you can use it as an escape. You can use it to catch up, and you're also doing damage when you use it. And he can buff his teammates who are fighting with him. And then his ultimate True Shot Barrage, is another one of those iconic LoL abilities. And it's a lot like Ashe's arrow. He just fires a massive blast across the screen, except whereas hers hits the first target, or hers stops at the first target it hits, his just blasts through everything. So you can do a lot of damage to champions or clear out minion waves. He's a He's a really useful champion.
Yeah, he's very good. And guys, I know that I'm like showing you champions that kind of, if you haven't already looked at it, you'll see like the difficulty rating and it'll go up. When we're showing you champions that may seem really difficult, don't be afraid of that. Like, don't be intimidated by that purple line being up there. That's just because a lot of their abilities require, you know, a little bit more finesse rather than just a targeted ability. You know, you can look at any other champion that would just seem a lot more straightforward, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're really good for those for new players to learn. We tossed in Ezreal in there along because also similar to Lux with mages, we wanted someone that was a little bit more difficult to kind of like grasp, but once you got the hang of it, you had a lot of other AD carries just known simply because Ezreal is very like he's very diverse in his abilities, but a lot of other champions also have similar abilities. So that's why we tossed him in there. He's just a good champion. Once you learn him, you'll know other champions just immediately, simply because they have something similar to Ezreal.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he's also really fun. Like, if you haven't played Ezreal, it's just really fun to watch him like jump around the map or get away when you think that he shouldn't get away, sort of thing. I remember it annoyed me when I was first learning how to play the game.
Oh, yeah, if you're trying to chase down an Ezreal, he's super hard to kill.
I agree. All right, so we'll talk about Leona, but real quick, let's talk about Sona, because I want to talk about Leona, but I'll let you talk about Sona first.
Sona is another great support. She's a great support to learn because all of her abilities are, like, they auto-target. You hit the button and they hit whoever's closest. So, I mean, sometimes you want to, you know, specifically heal a certain character or hit a certain character, and it removes that, but it doesn't really matter when you're learning because, you know, you just get close to your opponent, hit Q, they get hurt. Like, it's as simple as that. She, like I said, she's got a heal that hits multiple people. She's got a speed boost, and all of her normal abilities, not counting her ult, they auto-target. I mean, you can't get much easier than that.
Yeah. Another great thing about Sona is that she produces auras, and auras are an interesting factor in the game that are highly overlooked, especially with new players. And auras is just basically something that affects your teammates or even sometimes enemies in like either in a positive or negative way. And you don't have to do anything about it. You just sit there and have it on. So like if you have Aria of Perseverance on, you're giving all of your teammates just bonus armor, magic resist, and they heal a little bit faster. So that's really nice too. Along with like Hymn of Valor.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Sona is, like, with her passive, every 4 auto attacks, it'll apply a different effect considering the last spell she used, which when you're learning her, you can basically ignore it and you can still do really well. But the cool thing is, once you start to get comfortable with Sona, then you can start to work on how to use that passive, and it'll just get you that much better at the champion.
It's 3 spells, so once you cast 3 spells, you get your power.
3 spells, yeah.
Yeah, and then her ultimate is really nice because it's really good for team fighting. It's always viable whether you're doing poorly or not. Just that stun is just really nice. You just stop them in their place and it looks really cool, and it's just, Sona's a good, easy, fun champion to play. When you get a little bit better with her, you're going to start to notice different power chords and be able to do a little bit more with her as well. So we talked about Soraka as a support, but we're going to talk about my second lady and actually my favorite champion in the game, and that is Leona. She's
awesome.
She's one of the most popular supports right now. She looks really awesome because she just looks really cool. Has a lot of good skins, and I really dig the whole orange facade because that's my favorite color. But anyway, moving on into abilities. She's another one of those champions that has skill shots, but she's forgiving in the fact that her Eclipse, her W, is really strong. It gives her a lot of bonus resistances to her armor and magic resist. So if you end up messing up or you get yourself into a little bit of a pickle, you'll be a little bit safe just because Eclipse is keeping you a little bit protected. And that isn't activatable, so you do have to actually hit the button to make Eclipse go up. But she has a stun, which is nice. That's her Q, Shield of Daybreak. You just walk up to somebody and stun them. Real nice. And then her E, Zenith Blade, definitely one of the best engage items, engage abilities from a support. Zenith Blade, you snare the last person that you jump to, and you jump to them, which is awesome. And then her ultimate ability, Solar Flare, which is just really cool. It is a AoE distance, and I swear the thing gets larger every time I play her, or it just feels like it, but you can throw it like halfway across the lane, hit somebody, follow up with a Zenith Blade, Shield of Daybreak them, and then like, oh my goodness, I just kept them what we call stun locked I just kept him stun locked for like 3 seconds. How awesome is that? So that's really nice too. And she's just a really fun champion.
Yeah, Leona is one of those champions who's like always been good. Like there's some champions who, because of this change or that change, they're suddenly in favor or they're not. But it seems like, at least as long as I've been playing this game, Leona has always been a viable choice.
All right, so we're going to move quickly into jungle. We're going to go a little bit long today just because we want to talk to you higher ranked players, higher level players, and we're going to talk to you about the jungle. Now, a lot of you might already be familiar with the jungle. You know what that entails, killing creeps and ganking for your teammates. But there are champions that are just naturally better in the jungle. And a quick view, if you're thinking about picking up the jungle, some are more forgiving in the jungle as well. So we talked about Amumu, but we're going to go ahead and talk about Vi because I think she's also really easy and fun out of the jungle as well, and pretty straightforward too.
Yeah, she's a cool character. I really like her design too. She's a lot of fun to play, and she's one of those characters who can do a lot of damage, but you can also build them tanky to be a little more survivable in team fights. And she's got a couple of really great ways of engaging onto opponents. Her Q Vault Breaker, she charges up and dashes a short distance and does damage to the enemy. That's a good way of engaging. And also her ult, Assault and Battery, is once you've got someone locked on, it doesn't matter if they flash or escape or grab a Thresh Lantern, you're going to hit that character. And you knock them up and stun them, and it does a bunch of damage. And she's a really good way for your team to initiate a fight.
Yeah, Vi is awesome. I love Vi. She's also really funny too.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about why she excels in the jungle?
She's good in the jungle because she's got a pretty good clear time, and when we talk about clear time, what that means is how fast you're clearing the separate jungle camps. And if a champion can clear those faster and get on to the next one, they're going to have an advantage to one who's a bit slower. So that helps her out a lot in the jungle.
Two abilities that are really good out of the jungle. I mean, Excessive Force is by far one of her best abilities. You hit something and it deals AoE damage around it, which is really awesome for clearing waves. And you get 2 of those, and then they charge up. So that's really nice. And then her second ability is Denting Blows. And this one's really good, and it's kind of hidden strong, because especially in the jungle, because some creeps will start with some armor, but Denting Blows is this thing that breaks armor, and it actually shreds the armor off of them, which allows you to clear faster, and it also gives you attack speed when you get it procced up. So that's really nice too. So that's Vi for you. She's really good out of the jungle. She's also really good at ganking. She's good at team fights. She's just generally a good champion, especially out of the jungle.
Yeah, she's awesome.
So which one do you want to do out of the next?
Talked about Rammus already.
And we talked about Amumu.
I think Warwick is...
He's iconic and fun.
Yeah, he's a wolf man.
He's easy too.
Yeah. So he's already awesome. He's a big, giant, evil wolf man. And he's great in the jungle because he's good for sustaining. He's able to keep his life up with, I believe it's his Q. His Q. What's that called again?
Hungering Strike.
Hungering Strike, that's it. So, and that's another aspect of the jungle, is how long you can stay in the jungle without having to go back to base to refill your health. Because the creeps, early on, they do a decent amount of damage to you. So with that Hungering Strike, he's able to regen his health, which is a huge help.
Yeah, along with his passive, Eternal Thirst, allows you to regain health on auto attack. That's also really good too.
And his ult, Infinite Duress, that's basically you target a enemy champion and he locks right onto them and suppresses them for a short amount of time while doing damage. So if you can gank coming into like mid or top or any lane, you basically lock that champion down for a certain amount of time, and if the person you're in the lane with can get on them, they're pretty much done.
Yeah, it's also really nice for setting up, say, a support for another like stun. So say you're ganking a bot lane with a Leona and a Caitlyn, or you Infinite Duress, say their enemy Ezreal, and he can't Arcane Shift anymore. Leona follows up with her ultimate and stuns, and all of a sudden that Ezreal's just been sitting there for a good, I don't know, 5 seconds, which allows your Caitlyn to just wail on him. So you know, you're not always immune to getting out of things, but that being said, there are champions that are really good at getting away. And I said Ezreal because I think Ezreal is actually a really good champion to get away from.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and move on to terminology. You want to go over some real quick terminology?
Yeah, the first one was peeling. Peeling is basically where you are your high priority targets on your team, like your AD carry or your mage, like whoever's doing a lot of damage, the other team is going to want them dead, because once you wipe out the person doing the damage, you've got a huge advantage. So if you see someone like, let's say a Warwick, for example, getting on your AD carry, peeling them means you're using your ability to try and get rid of them, to try and get them to disengage so they're not going to be doing that damage anymore. A good one for that, who we didn't talk about, is Alistar, his headbutt. If you see that one of your high priority targets is in danger, you headbutt whoever's after them, then they're suddenly way too far away to do anything anymore.
So that's peeling. And peeling isn't just CC either. Peeling can also be a lot of damage. So say like a tank is on top of, say like maybe Warwick is building tanky and he's sitting on your Ezreal and just not getting off. Well, if you're playing like a high damage dealing champion and you want to get him off out of there, you just burst that Warwick down, and all of a sudden he's now afraid because he thinks he's going to die, so he gets out of there just to not die. That's a form of peeling too. So don't forget, peeling is just basically getting someone off of another champion.
Exactly.
Kiting is something that is usually, when we talk about kiting, it's usually in reference to AD carries, but other people can do it too. You know, AP carries can definitely do it, and if you are really low on health, you can also kite by just running away and maybe leading them into a disadvantageous position. But kiting is really straightforward. If you've ever played World of Warcraft, you know exactly what it is. You basically pull the enemy around you and don't let them get to you, while also maybe dealing damage to them, or you're basically trying to get them in a disadvantageous position while not getting in trouble yourself. So that's what kiting is. AD carries do this exceptionally well. People like Ezreal and people like Ashe, people like Vayne, they're really good at doing this sort of kiting thing. So that's kiting.
Exactly. And the next two, they kind of can go together sometimes, pressuring and poke. That's basically like there's different ways of pressure. Like you can pressure your lane. That's where you are basically keeping a lot of you're keeping the minions pushed up towards your opponent's tower. So they're constantly, if they're stuck under their tower trying to farm and they're not really good at that, they're going to be losing CS. So that's one really good way of pressuring your opponent.
Another way of pressure, say maybe out of the jungle, is like lane presence. We call, when the jungle actually shows himself, is called lane presence. That's another form of pressure. You know, say your bot lane isn't really doing too well, and you know that they have like maybe their river bush warded. As Warwick, you just go down there and you show yourself. That's another form of pressure, because that's going to make them be like, oh, I don't want to engage on a 3v2. We should back up a little bit. So that's how the jungle can show some pressure too.
Yeah, you want to keep your opponents as uncomfortable as possible.
And you can also pressure objectives. It's a little bit different when you think about it. Pressuring an objective is where you basically you kind of put yourself in a position to maybe take the objective, say dragon or a tower, and at that point you're pressuring the objective and making them either respond to that by going there and putting themselves in a bad position, or letting you have it altogether. And that's another form of pressuring an objective. That's what we mean when we say pressure tower, pressure dragon, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And you kind of touched on poke, but it's also really specific when we talk about poking somebody.
Yeah, it's champions who have longer range abilities where you're not going all in, you're not trying to kill them, you're just trying to put damage on them, but you're far enough away that they can't return that damage. A champion who's really good at that, and who is my personal favorite, Ziggs, with his bouncing bomb. You can just huck bombs all day, and if your opponent doesn't have a good way of getting on you or doesn't have any ranged abilities, they're basically stuck either eating those bombs or moving out of the way and missing CS. So it's using your range to try and pressure or to try and get your opponent to lose CS or just getting an advantage against your opponent.
Yeah. And poking can also sometimes lead to kills. So if you poke someone down with like a Ziggs and then you hit your 6 and you get your ultimate ability, and you just keep them down and poked and make them afraid, and then all of a sudden you get your ultimate and you real quick blow them up with your Mega Inferno Bomb. So poking has a lot of different advantages. Poking can make them back off of you. It can make them leave the lane entirely. It can make them, think about engaging on you if you don't feel like you can win a straight-up fight. You get them poked down a little bit, they'll definitely think twice before they try and engage with you. So poking is something that is very good to get good at, and that's so we talked about kiting being more of an AD carry thing. Poking, while it's also an AD carry thing, is very, very much an AP carry thing. So trading as a mage and learning how to poke as a mage is really good at keeping yourself comfortable in your lane.
Yep.
So we kind of touched on it before, but objective control. This will be really broad. We're not going to get too deep into it, but when we say objective control, we're basically talking about something that gives gold that you don't want to either lose or you want to get, so that it'll either put the team at a disadvantage or it'll put you at an advantage. So just objective control is exactly that. Making sure you don't lose a tower or taking a tower. Defending a dragon so the enemy team can't get it, or taking the dragon so that you can get the gold. So that's objective control. We're not going to get too deep into that just because it can get a little bit difficult on when you should, exploit your objective control. And that's more just strategy based. So that's kind of objective control in a real fine nutshell.
Yeah. Yeah, and the next one, frontline and backline. That's probably something we'll talk about even more when we get into talking about positioning, but that's basically frontline is your tanks, or the people you want to engage in a fight. They're going to soak up the most damage, they're going to engage, they're going to start the fight off, ideally. And then your backline, those are the vulnerable damage dealers, the glass cannons. You want your marksman in the back or your AP carry. You don't want them getting into the fight, you just want them sitting behind your tanks, throwing out as much damage as possible.
Yeah. Frontline, backline is very important. Specific champions are really good at getting to the backline, and at that point they're no longer considered frontline champions. Like assassins are really good at getting into the backline and blowing up your carries, and that's where positioning really comes into factor. So frontline, backline. Frontline is basically, say you're the AD carry, you're the quarterback, you're the key niche in everything. You do the damage, you mop up the kills and all those different things. If your front line is your defenders, that's basically how it goes. That's how you should look at it. So front line, like back line. And then that leads us into positioning.
Yeah, and that's an episode unto itself. Yeah. That's basically, you can't just, when you're getting into a team fight, you can't just charge in. There's a lot of things to consider, especially for the marksman. Positioning is extremely important. And that's just your position on the map in relation to the team fight, in relation to objectives. It's something you have to pretty much be considering at all times, because it can be the difference between getting a kill or getting killed.
Yeah, so getting killed and getting a kill, what he means by that is if you're out of position, say you're the AD carry and you're in front of your front line, so your tanks can't back you up and help peel, which are all things that we were talking about. If you're out of position, not keeping positioning in mind, that means you're going to get caught and you're going to get killed. So that's a
bad place to be.
Yeah, so that's what we mean by positioning. So we're going to quick wrap this up because we do have we have T-Force proper coming up real quick. In about 15 minutes. But remember, guys, rewatch the episode if you feel like you missed anything. Don't forget to send emails towards us. Emails right there, but in case you're just not really paying attention or you're kind of listening to this in the background, that is battlearena@trinityforcepodcast.com. You can always check out all of the different episodes and podcasts at trinityforcepodcast.com, just www. And we want to go over what we're going to talk about next week, so keep you guys on your toes so you guys will know.
Yeah, next week is going to be meta, vision, and map objective controls. We'll probably spend a little bit more time on the second two things because when you're first starting out, the meta is kind of non-existent, but we're still going to go over that because that's an important thing to note. So yeah, that's going to be a good episode.
Yeah. Now, map objective control, a lot of you are probably thinking, you know, I don't really, you just said that that's kind of an episode unto itself. We're talking about vision and map and objective control. Not two different things, but learning basically learning how to ward. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. Learning how to grant vision for your team and learning the key fundamentals of awareness. And that's what we need to teach you next week is mini map and just general map awareness. So that's what we got on for next week. You got anything else to talk about?
I think that's it, man.
Awesome.
We did it.
Yeah,
episode
that's good.
2.
Yep, that was episode 2. Real quick news. We may be expanding to two days a week just because we feel like it's a lot of content to get out, and you know, we feel like one day really isn't enough. So we may or may not, most likely may be coming out with 2, and it'll be the same time. We're thinking of about Monday, the same time. So 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We'll keep you guys updated, as will Pwn and T-Force Proper and everyone else around Battle Arena LCS. They'll all keep you updated on changes. But if you have any questions, feel free to jump into the T-Force chat channel or email us at Battle Arena or feedback@TrinityForcePodcast.com. Thank you guys for watching. Take it easy.
Bye.